Hello, hello from the To Write Love on Our Arms office to your screens. We are broadcasting live to Facebook, to YouTube, and to Twitch. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's an honor to spend the first part of about 3.5, 4 hours of programming with you.
Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. So just some quick introductions. My name's Chad. I use he and him pronouns. I am the Director of Outreach at To Write Love on Our Arms, and I am joined by
Lindsay Kolsch. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the co-executive director of To Write Love on Her Arms. And we are just really honored, I would say, to spend today with you all tuning in, like Chad said, across YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Today means a lot to a lot of people, and we're just really grateful to be here together, sort of virtually, and then also in spirit with those tuning in.
So like I hinted at earlier, this is really just the first stop today. And for those of you that are just tuning in, maybe this is the first time that you've seen us go live on your own computers or phone screens. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. This is a day that the entire world has decided to come together, pause, reflect, really kind of pledge to do better, find ways to care for people in our communities that have been affected by suicide, and find ways to elevate the conversation, make sure that people that are looking for help have access to that help. That, of course, hits on a number of facets, whether that's financial, raising money for treatment and recovery, socially, just trying to bring the conversation to the forefront, and also personally. It's our hope in anything that we do as an organization to make sure that you feel seen, valued, and cared for. So everything that we're doing throughout today is hopefully an apt reflection of those values. We are in the middle of National Suicide Prevention Week in the United States, and there's many communities that have extended all of September to be Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So in whatever way you are honoring today, we are so thankful that you are allowing us to be part of your experience today. So throughout this stream, we're going to be sharing some campaign updates. We're going to be looking back over the past few months. Well, it's felt like months. It's only been a few
5 weeks.
5 weeks, 5 short weeks, as my notes tell me. We're going to look back to see, how this conversation has played out over the past month. And we're also going to share how you can continue to keep this conversation going. This week is not over, and this day is still going.
The month's not over.
The month is not over. This month is just begun.
Who knew?
Not me. But before we go too much further, I just want to send a shout out to everyone that's had a hand in the campaign so far. Every penny that's been raised, every Facebook post, every retweet, every Instagram story that's been shared has been a piece of this. I want to take another second just to thank our Taloha team so much. Every graphic that you've seen has been meticulously curated by our design team. Our communications team has done an incredible job of lining up some incredible interviews, getting some really compelling guests to the table to talk about these issues, and also to interact with you. That leads us to our next point. Throughout today, if you have a question during this stream, feel free to drop that into the comment section or the chat box if you're on Twitch, and our team will be combing through those, and hopefully we'll have some time to respond to a few of those questions.
Yeah, and Chad, I would mention for those who are interacting online today, our team is meeting you where you are. So while we can't be at a lot of the physical events that we would normally get to be a part of during this week and during this campaign, we are meeting people in those spaces. So a huge shout out to that team responding, interacting. So this is not going to be a one-way conversation. This is really an invitation for you to join us today.
Yeah. So again, if this is the first time that you've seen us or this campaign, we are so glad you're here. For those of you that have been tracking with us for the past month, our statement, our rallying cry for this campaign has been worth living for. So all of our communications, whether that's encouraging you to send in a video or respond in a prompt card or just leave a hashtag, has been really drawn by this phrase and the statement, worth living for. These words were supplied to us by our dear friend Levi the poet. If you've been tracking with us and you know that this comes from a poem of his that he wrote, he also has a book coming out by the same name of It's All Worth Living For.
Is that out today, Chad, or it's been out?
I
in 3
think
days?
it's been out for about 48 hours now, but I'm sure Levi's also keeping track of this conversation. He'll correct me. But yes, thank you so much, Levi, for inspiring this year's campaign. And thank you to the viewers for interacting so honestly with the campaign.
Yeah, and I would just echo kind of what Chad's already mentioned as we kind of look back a little bit over the past couple weeks, as well as looking forward and talking about what you can be doing right now. We really set a couple goals. We have the same sort of core goals each year, but this year, we really wanted to focus on making it easier for people to enter this conversation. You're going to see that out as it plays out as we do a quick look back, and then also connecting people to resources of help and hope. We know 2/3 of people who struggle do not reach out, do not seek help, and so one of the ways that we believe this is going to change is by these conversations, making it accessible for people to really say, I need to talk to someone, I do need help. And so we've been connecting people to these local mental health resources. As Chad mentioned, we're raising money to help provide scholarships for treatment and recovery. We'll touch on that a little later. We know how huge that barrier can be for people. But I do want to just mention, you'll be seeing our Worth Living For fundraising campaign link being dropped in, like Chad said, on the comments or in the chat bot on Twitch. So if you're at a place where you can give, please, we invite you to share in this life-saving work by making a gift. No gift is too small, but we just want to let you know how much that does matter. And I think, are those all of our short announcements, Chad? I think we've covered most of the top stuff. So again, if you are just joining us, I do want to reiterate, we are kicking off today a couple hours of streaming on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, all in support of World Suicide Prevention Day. And we're just glad you're here, grateful that you're joining us.
Yeah. Like Lindsay said, a huge piece of this has been financial, but arguably a bigger piece has been conversational. So often people don't talk about suicide or suicide prevention because we don't know if we're even allowed to. So that was one of the goals of the Worth Living For campaign, making sure that we can connect people to resources by enabling conversations. So for the Worth Living For campaign over the past several weeks, we've invited you into these conversations with the hope that what you see as worth living for would connect with someone else, that would inspire some additional conversation within your communities. That being said, it is our honor to debut a video that we have made throughout this campaign, but we have just released it today. If you are part of our newsletter team or part of our community SMS, then you've probably already seen it. But just in case, it is with our distinct pleasure that we present our campaign video to you right now.
I'm living for a new tomorrow.
I'm living for the grace that carries us through our hardest days.
All that was created for me to enjoy.
I'm living for hope.
Christina Perri concerts, plot twists, wedding bells, travel, sweet surprises.
I am living for the day when I finally see that it really does get better.
I live for going on walks with my friends and family and laughing really hard at silly things.
I hope that whatever I do can encourage you that you're worth living for.
I am living for the possibilities. Yes, pain, but also joy and beauty and connection and redemption.
I am living for all of the memories that I have yet to create with the people that I love and all of the people that I have yet to show love to.
I'm living for the future of music.
I am living for the end of generational curses.
Estoy viviendo para ver el amanecer desde la colina, bailar mi canción favorita.
For memories still being made.
I am living for the Olympics because hope has not been cancelled.
Dwi'n byw ar gyfer fy nheulu, fy ffrindiau, am anturiaethau ar sêr. Dwi'n byw am y pacedi bach o golau yn yr eiliadau mwyaf tywyll.
Because our happiness is worth living for.
It's worth seeing whether I can create a better tomorrow for others.
I am worth living for, that my wife and my son are worth living for.
We can all make a difference in this world, and that difference is worth living for.
We can choose to care.
We can keep showing up.
We can keep remembering and reminding each other that it's possible to change.
We've got to keep trying.
You won't have to go alone.
There are people that want to help.
There are people who know how to help.
It is all worth living for.
Your life matters.
I'm living for all those friends who couldn't keep going. And I've actually found that I'm worth living for.
Vale a pena viver por.
We want to thank all of you who submitted your responses to the campaign for that. And we know that that was only a fraction of the responses that came through. And we want to remind you that the conversation is still going on. And that's really what today is all about. So go ahead on social media, post your own response cards, tag Worth Living For, or tag also WSPD20. You can even go ahead and share your video. You can still make some clips. The idea, again, is just to invite more people into the conversation and using your life, your lived experience as a way to break the ice to make sure that people who are looking for help get access to that help. Throughout today, we are going to get into sharing a few of the highlights of the campaign and some of the conversations that we've been having. But again, you can check all of these conversations out in real time on our social media. Instagram and Twitter. You can find us at TWLOHA. Also on Facebook with Write Love on Her Arms. So we've been more than just on social media. We've also been having conversations through our podcasts, through our blogs, through roundtable conversations. If you had missed any of those videos, then you can definitely check them out still on our YouTube page or on our videos tab on the Facebook page where some of you guys are watching right now. In this year's context, you know, the conversations might not have been able to happen in person. Typically during this time of the year, we're still hopping from speaking event to speaking event, from high schools to college campuses to music festivals. And it's been a weird year. That's the understatement of the century. But we have been able to translate all that activity that we normally put out in different physical spaces onto the digital space. And just a word of gratitude for all of you that have joined us along the way. So again, if you are just joining us today, we've had these conversations on Instagram Live. You can still find many of those conversations on our IGTV and through our Facebook channel and YouTube as well.
Yeah, and Chad, I'd just mention, if you are visiting the campaign landing page, worthlivingfor.com, you can also scroll down to the bottom and kind of see the collection of not only these conversations, but maybe you prefer blogs, or maybe you like to listen as a podcast. We have a collection every week. We have dropped a new blog related to the campaign or a new podcast, really providing as many options as the way you like to kind of enter conversations. So we'd encourage you to check that out. And this year, really, Chad, you mentioned this theme of conversation. This year was definitely different for us, right? In that we typically will sort of spend 4 weeks encouraging people to get ready for this particular day and this particular week. But we kind of felt as a team collectively, and what we were sensing, that we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait for these conversations to start. And so we actually started as soon as the campaign kicked off. At our launch event, we started having conversations about suicide prevention, about suicide, what helps us greater understand the issue, the public health crisis of suicide, and what we can be doing to enter in and help change the statistics that continue to rise and have been rising the past 20 years. So there were 3 themes, right, that we identified. Those 3 main themes that we sort of framed our conversations around. And of course, there's so many ways for us to talk about suicide. suicide prevention and the mental health crisis that we are all facing collectively. But we started with stigma, and then we went and talked a little bit more about barriers to help. And then finally, just understanding suicide as from the personal perspective, as well as the what you might say the zoomed out macro, understanding the society issue of suicide. And that kicked off the first conversation roundtables that we were having on Facebook, as well as some of the guests that we had on Instagram Live. And so I want to start there, if that's okay with you. I want to just tackle a little bit, because even though we've had these conversations, they're still so important right now. They're important right today, honestly. It was something I had in my mind as I was posting about my own story today, my own experience with suicidality at different seasons of my life. What would stop me from sharing today? And it really did come down to stigma, right? I had to look this up because I understand stigma. I work in mental health, but it literally means a mark of disgrace. That's the definition. And so often we think about stigma and what sharing our struggles or what our mental health experience will mean. And we believe that it will give us a mark of disgrace in some capacity, a disadvantage, and some situation will be better off if we don't mention it, right? So that's stigma. But I really love what you say, Chad, about, and correct me if I get it wrong, please do. But you say that stigma is what? You say it.
Go ahead and say it. So I believe that stigma is whenever silence is the loudest voice in a conversation.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's really poignant, because what it means is what's being unsaid, right? It's what we're afraid to say. And I think that sums it up. So if this is a new concept to you, that's a really easy way to kind of think about what stigma does. And one really cool moment of this campaign that we were going to highlight and share with you today is coming from our partnership with Limonada Media. We got to talk with Andy Slavitt. He is the former administrator of the Center for Medicaid and Medicare, and he's talks a little bit about how stigma shows up in a really practical way, and we're excited to share that with you here.
So I do this thing with my own brain where when someone says mental health or addiction, I substitute the word diabetes or cancer and ask myself if it makes sense. So you know what, we decided we were not going to let him in for more treatment because he refused to take his insulin. What? Yeah. No one would ever say that. Sure. You know, we've decided that I'm not going to ask for who the best specialist is because I don't want my neighbor to know that I have rheumatoid arthritis. Never happened. Never happened. You'd say, hey, they have rheumatoid arthritis. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I wonder if they went to someone good. And I found that, you know, when people say things like, look, I'm a believer in harm reduction, and I'm a believer in none of this is anybody's fault. Fault is not part of the conversation. These are diseases, these are chronic conditions, and they're treatable. Like that's, I think, number one message is they're treatable, but they're not treatable unless you understand it as a disease. If you think of it as something's wrong with me, I can't be fixed, then you're limiting the possibilities. But if you understand, hey, I've got something that's like high blood sugar. It's like a bad cell. It's whatever it is, doesn't matter, but I can treat it. Sure. And there's professionals that can help me treat it. There are medications that can help me treat it. And the longer I go, the more I'm torturing myself. The more I'm putting myself in a state where I am believing that there's something deeper and deeper wrong, when that's not in fact the case. You're just suffering.
So that was a late addition to our first theme of stigma. And I loved how we framed the conversations this year, because the conversations really did build on top of one another.
Yeah, 100%.
So while that first week we were talking all about stigma, and stigma is a barrier into itself, the next week we were talking about other barriers to help. So we were sharing about now how not only financial and time and location constraints can play a big part in preventing people from accessing help, but also oftentimes how the system has set up its own challenges for how people engage with and have access to that help. So in our second week on our round table, we invited our friend Stefan, Kelly from Mental Health America, and our friend Ebony Janice to the table, as well as our friend Yana at Trans Lifeline. Unfortunately, her cell service and Wi-Fi service wasn't there, but please check out the great work that Trans Lifeline is doing. However, we do want to give you a little bit of a snippet of our hour-long conversation that we had a couple weeks back on barriers to help.
I think, cost and access to providers is big. The last thing I would say too is in my role at MHA, I work in peer advocacy. So I'm a person with lived experience. I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and PTSD, and have a lot of experience, lot of experience accessing services. And I would say a lot of the way that we've set things up was not built with the understanding of what it's like to go through a system or to go through services. So I think too, when we tell people to reach out for help, a lot of times we're saying, okay, go to a crisis unit, go to the hospital, call a therapist. But I think peer support and having people with lived experience, when I was hospitalized when I was in high school, if there was somebody like me who was there, who could tell me this is what you can expect, these are the services that are available to you, these kinds of things. And I'm going to be with you in the community. So when you're outside of the hour of therapy a week, you have someone to talk to who gets it. I think that's really important too. So there's a lot of barriers in terms of accessing traditional services, but I think traditional services are also not built, informed by people, whether that's a marginalized identity, or whether it's just, somebody who's been through a lot of services and is like, there's so many gaps in what could be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we came back, like you said, these weeks built on top of each other, starting with stigma and then barriers to help. And I really want to just encourage you all, go check these conversations out. We're doing our best to just give you a little bit of the highlights, but there's so much in there that we couldn't share with you in this short stream. So please go check them out. We wanted to share now the next conversation that we had, and we really wanted to approach understanding suicide as a public health issue, as well as a personal experience that so many people have experienced. And so here's a short conversation, a clip for you. Nzinga Harrison from Eleanor Health and Michelle from the Trevor Project, and how they kind of tackle this issue.
Think about the moment in your life where you felt the deepest, most intolerable, most unbearable pain, and not being able to see an end to that pain. And you can understand how dying starts to look like the only solution. And so I think part of being able to recognize, like you said, being in that moment, part of what helps people see beyond that moment is connection and compassion. And so those of our people who are at most risk for attempting suicide or dying by suicide are those where I say, as a psychiatrist or at Eleanor Health, what we believe is like when we have people in our community who are hopeless, we have to be able to be that shining light and stand in that moment and be your hope when you don't have hope, so that you can try to help usher someone out of that pain. And so I would say disconnectedness and just sitting in that unbearable, seemingly endless place of pain is where suicide becomes an option and a real risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to add to this too, because I think there are a lot of themes that resonate also with the Trevor Project and what we see in LGBTQ young people. I mean, one of the factors that we know contributes to the young people we serve, of course, is the day-to-day discrimination and stigma and rejection they're facing in their lives. And then you're compounding that with other life high-risk issues such as unemployment and homelessness, which we also know that for LGBTQ youth, they're faced with that at a disproportionate rate. And then we layer the time we're living in and how COVID-19 has really exacerbated these risk factors. You know, we know that young people are living in unsafe environments, communities that aren't welcoming to them. And so on top of feelings they may already have around depression and anxiety and isolation, you know, we're living through a pandemic that can really heighten and intensify those feelings of being alone. And so the Trevor Project, you know, through our 24/7 chat, text, and hotline, our aim is really to make sure that young person does not feel alone and that we can meet them where they're at, and that we understand the intersectionality of their identities, and that the stresses they're dealing with day to day relate to their identity as well as the other risk factors that may be really impacting their ability to see themselves and the future in front of them.
So those were clips, about 6 minutes, that were really trying to communicate 3 weeks of conversation about stigma, barriers to help, and understanding suicide. And the hope was that those weeks of conversation would lead us to this point right now, National Suicide Prevention Week. So all throughout this week, we've been releasing daily content on worthlivingfor.com, where you can find daily action steps on ways that you can continue to engage within yourself and within your community on how we can make a difference in terms of suicide prevention. So the week started on Sunday, where the theme was look for signs and ask the question. All the images that you're seeing on your screen are still available at worthlivingfor.com. So I love that we started off with this one really kind of emboldening you to say it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to ask the question. I remember a few years back, I was sitting on a panel for suicide prevention. And one of the most impactful things I've ever experienced in public speaking was a counselor telling everyone in the audience to turn to their neighbor, left and right, and ask this question. Have you ever thought about dying by suicide? Have you ever thought about not waking up? Have you ever thought about making an early exit? And what happened there, it started a little bit awkwardly, but it painted a beautiful picture that you are allowed to ask these questions. And the world will not end just by you saying these words. But in fact, you are showing someone else that you are a safe place to have that conversation. And the next time that you have to ask that question, it won't be the first. So find someone that you love, find someone that you trust and care for, and practice saying these words and asking the questions.
Yeah, and Chad, I think it's worth noting, as Michelle was sort of finishing up her thought about being in a pandemic, right? We saw recently the CDC released a study that said 1 in 4 young adults have thought about suicide because of the pandemic. And so when we look at what is happening this year, what's going on right now, today, we know that that question is so important. It is incredibly important, maybe now more than it ever has been before. And so asking that question open-endedly, asking it with no expected answer in mind is really going to give people permission to speak honestly, and you can then help them move toward help, right? Yeah. On Monday, it's Thursday, on Monday, our next action step was know and share help. Again, our whole goal was really to make it easier for people to find the resources. So often we hear, I just didn't know these resources were out there. I've heard that, more than I would like to have heard before. We've got on there this graphic, which is available again on worthlivingfor.com under Monday's action step, sharing our Find Help tool. We'll talk a little bit about how that helps connect you. We're even going to show you how that can connect you to free and reduced cost mental health services in your community. We've got crisis text line on there that's now available in several countries. The National Suicide Helpline, 1-800-273-TALK, Trans Lifeline, the Trevor Project, RAIN. These are all amazing resources, and we're actually challenging you right now. Don't only share this, let's put it in your phone. That way you can share it with someone very quickly when needed. And maybe it's something you even need. These are all things that are accessible. And so we're just super grateful. And I would also mention, if you are tuning in today on World Suicide Prevention Day from another country outside of the North American continent, we have an international section on our website that you can also access additional resources that would fit your location. You just find those under the international resources there on tualoha.com/findhelp.
Yeah. So we know that resources, they come at a cost, that there is not a just free option for hope and help that are often readily available. So on Tuesday, we were activating people along the lines of supporting someone's healing. So all throughout this campaign for the past month, we've set a goal to raise $250,000, $250,000 that would all be tagged for treatment and recovery. Just to put a caveat there, there are options for free and reduced cost treatment. And we are raising this money to make sure that those resources are able to continue the work that they do. So campaign update, we are currently at $188,000. We only have $62,000 left to go. It's been amazing, not just seeing the money come in, but seeing the stories that people are giving for a reason. And we are just so honored to see these conversations continue in ways that are gonna unfold in someone finding a counselor for the first time, someone entering treatment and therapy options for the first time, or people being able to continue the work that they've already begun. So thank you so much for partnering with us already. We got a little more work to do. Feel free to keep sharing, keep donating, and keep connecting with other people.
Yeah, and just to kind of share a few of the stories of how these funds have impacted the lives of people that, frankly, we don't get to ever meet. But we're just so grateful that they come to us and say, I do have a need and I need help meeting that. And so we have a short video here to kind of encapsulate what these funds mean to so many people.
When I was 17, I lost my dad to suicide. I finally found a really good therapist, and she's just really helped me process my grief. And I know it's expensive. It's okay to take care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't really pour out and help others.
It means everything. It means I can breathe again without feeling like I'm drowning. It means I have someone who believes in me. It means I survive.
Being a mom can be tough and isolating and difficult, and I find that self-care and treatment, like some sort of therapy, someone to talk to, is extremely helpful because it brings joy to me and it brings me a time to be happy and to get advice, not be ashamed to get help.
Yeah, and as you see those stories kind of unfold, that's one of the great honors and privileges of this campaign, is to really show up for people in the moments when they have such a great need. The funds, again, that we are raising, that $250,000 goal, the really ambitious big goal we set this year, was all so that we could really make a tremendous impact, right? That's what that would translate to is 3,500 counseling sessions. It's going to also help fund 45,000 searches on our Find Help tool. The Find Help tool, if that's new to you, if it's something new you're hearing about, it's on our website, tualoha.com/findhelp. And it allows you to look for free, reduced cost services in your local community. If you are based in the US, every zip code in America. It is currently not available outside of the US, but again, we do have those resources that are being listed in the international section on our website. The impact of a gift today is tremendous. And we've got it on our screen here. It's super easy to try to make it your search start seamlessly. You're going to just select a level of care you're looking for. You might select counseling, might put a zip code in. We're going to choose one in the Orlando area, and you hit search. And then what you're going to find here, you're going to find resources that are listed by geographical closeness to you, as well as some of our key partners, partners that we have worked with, we trust. They're going to be coming up recommended, or they're going to come up as partner. But in addition to that, there's a ton of programs out there that deal with things like your income ability. There's personal filters you can apply to these searches. It might be a specific type of issue that you're looking for, but we really hope that you will check this out and give it a chance. The conversation about getting help and needing help, it makes it a lot easier when you can actually get to the resources that you need. And we would encourage you to start there. And so if you are interested and able today to support treatment and recovery, to help one person, $10, it can help us expand and improve this Find Help tool, adding providers. $25 is going to help us continue to connect 150 people online to that Hope and Help. And then $50 is going to help somebody sit with a counselor. We've been seeing people set their goals, say, I want to help 5 people sit with a counselor this year. I want to help 10 people, 20 people. And so I just want to thank all of our fundraisers. They're happening across all these amazing platforms. Because we are streaming in Twitch, I want to just shout out those streamers. We've got more than 70 plus streamers who are streaming right now. There might even be some coming up here on the front page of Twitch, which is a huge opportunity and a great opportunity to just share this message. We've got folks in our Classy campaign, our peer-to-peer, which you can find at theworthLivingFor.com website. Those folks are sharing just with their community how they can step up. We also want to thank 2 of the players from the U.S. Women's National Team, Allie Krieger and Ashlyn Harris. They are giving away 2 Olympic qualifying jerseys and 2 goalie gloves. You can enter to win. All of that money will support this campaign. Thank Carolyn Marks, who is a professional pro surfer, also from our local community, which is really awesome and cool to say. She's giving away a competition jersey and some other fun items. But all of these things, whether you see add a donate button on Facebook, you add a donate button on Instagram stories, or if you're streaming right now, there's so many ways that you can invite people to stand with those struggling and really help make it possible for them to have access to resources. So we'd encourage you, maybe you can't give, but sharing your story and adding that button could really give somebody else that invitation that they needed to join you today. So we don't want that to be a barrier to anybody, and we hope you'll join us in that.
Right on. So again, you can find all of those. I believe we're dropping links to some of those raffleable prizes.
Yeah.
So we do have a few minutes left in order to get to a couple questions. Unless, Lindsay, am I missing any
Well,
other?
I would just say quick action steps today. World Suicide Prevention Day. If you're showing up, you're already a part of this conversation. You can join us by still buying a pack. You can join us by posting, sharing the video, putting that response card. This is my response card from earlier, sharing, adding donate buttons. It is not too late. If you are just now hearing about this, please know your voice matters in this campaign, in this effort, and will matter in the days to come. But I think that's kind of the main action step, and I'd love to get to a couple questions while we still have a chance.
For sure. So we had someone in the comment stream who's asking this question, which is one that we hear very often. They're asking, in your darkest moments, how do you hold on to hope? And first, I just want to say thank you for, despite whatever it is you're walking through, for showing up today. That it is our belief, and you're not going to move us away from this belief, that you have made today better simply by showing up. Every year we try to communicate something during this week, and honestly, throughout every single hour that we put into this project, that your life is something that deserves to be seen, that you are someone that deserves to be heard and valued. But even as I'm talking about individuals, that you deserve to be seen, you deserve to be valued, you deserve to be heard, that it's not all on you to hold on to hope by yourself. I really believe that it's unfair to whittle this campaign, this conversation of World Suicide Prevention Day, National Suicide Prevention Week, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, into just a positivity campaign. That it's not about the power of positive thinking. Mm-hmm. I believe it's a power of bringing people together, of making connections. We know that it can be hard to hold on to hope by yourself, but I believe that together we can hold each other together. So that Find Help tool that we were mentioning is a great place to start to look for help. Our friends at Crisis Text Line are at the ready. If you don't feel like you're able to verbally communicate, then we have ways for you to keep the conversation going. That throughout this campaign, the hope is to use these prompt cards, use these video clips to identify safe places within your community. That if you see someone posting today that suicide prevention matters to them, their reasons to keep living, their reasons to keep moving forward, start with them as people to rest, to find some respite, to get a pit stop. And in the moments that you feel like you are out of hope, there will be people to pour into you. I know at times it can be really difficult to identify those safe places. So if you're looking around and you don't know where to start with us. Feel free to send us a message on social media. Send us an email to info@taloha.com. And in any moments of crisis, please lean on our Find Help page. Those are places that we trust with our friends, with our families, with our lives to make sure that your story can continue.
Yeah, and Chad, I would just maybe echo what you were saying from maybe a more of a personal stance or something. That, you know, when I've been in that place where something feels hopeless, the reminder that it's okay to simply say that, to invite somebody in to that spot that you're at, to allow them to sit with you in that, sometimes is what you need, right? You need somebody not to come up with the solution, but to be with you. And Nzinga and Chad, you put it really well, talked about connectedness, that our pain is actually not a burden, that you are not a burden. And so I would just say that that's been true in my experience. And so whether that's sitting with a counselor, if you feel unsafe with someone in your direct community or maybe a family member, there's so many people, even our friends at Crisis Text Line, they want to be with you in those moments. And so reaching out, as difficult and heavy as that can feel, sometimes that's the best way to let a little bit of light in, right? A little bit of hope for that moment.
For sure.
I think we do have another question. We've got a couple more minutes here. I'm going to just read it as is, Chad. This is from our friends in the Twitch stream. What are some ways that you can engage, perhaps non-verbally hands-off, if perhaps direct engagement is an option? I find that because of stigma, some will resort to defensiveness or dismissal when approached. So I think what this person is asking is about kind of that initial, when you try to connect with someone, they're like, oh, I don't need help. What? I need help? You know, I've experienced that in my own life, kind of the result of stigma, I think. Or maybe it's just even a boundaries or something that is probably better for you to try to find a way to reach out to somebody or to help support them. So what would you say, Chad? Maybe you can answer this for us. Less direct ways to connect with someone you think that might be struggling, or ways to kind of show somebody that that you do care and kind of give them an open door.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that even with the context of the pandemic, that we've lost the luxury of consistency in seeing our friends face to face whenever we really want to. So this is a super important question. And that being said, you know, we believe that one of the best ways to communicate with anyone is with honesty and with authenticity. That I believe your willingness to show up in these moments, that does kind of build a sense of currency over time. That even when you bring up hard conversations and you feel shut down immediately afterwards, I do believe that you're still chipping away at some of those walls, at some of those barriers. So please do not devalue just because you don't get the instant sense of kind of emotional release when you offer some help. It doesn't mean that that offering of help is going to return void. All of that to say, even with our campaign packs on our web store, we have ways for you to indirectly continue the conversation. I think the postcards are some of my favorite materials that we have ever created, just as little ways to check in on one another. And again, just prove that you are a safe place to continue these conversations. Just as Lindsay kind of brought it to a personal anecdote, I was the same way. When I was in some of my darkest moments, everyone could see I was struggling, except I thought my refusal to admit it would kind of kick people off my trail. And that wasn't the case. I had friends that were loving me despite the reasons I was giving them not to, believing in me despite all the reasons I was giving them not to. And if it wasn't for a friend, just asking that question one more time, how are you? How can I help you? Can we get through this together? Then, I don't know if I would be here at this project or here on this planet. So as someone that has benefited directly from people's checking in, being broken records of hope, you have options. One other great way to help in a kind of futuristic mode is to do the research, is to familiarize yourself with resources. You don't always get to pick and choose the times where someone is ready to talk about it. So be prepared. Like Lindsay mentioned earlier, have some of these resources saved in a note or saved as a picture on your phone. So when someone does say, you know what, I could use a little bit of help, you can say, I'm so glad you asked. Here are some places we can start. What sounds good to you? So yeah, communicate in ways that you think make sense. You don't have to take our script. You can communicate love in the ways that you think the people in your life need to hear that love.
Well, Chad, it's hard to believe, but our time is coming to a close. That went by really fast. We're so grateful for every person who has tuned in on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. These conversations are not over. They are just getting started. Again, there are ways you can join us today. So that's posting, answering, finishing the statement, I am living for, sharing bits of your story. Maybe it's simply sharing the campaign graphics that we are posting, the video. Maybe it's downloading this response card, filling yours out, letting people join this conversation and stand with you. We have just kicked off a couple of the hours of live streaming that is happening. You are going to start seeing the next set of streams happen on Instagram Live. So you will need to be popping over there to see our guests, Twinny, Salema, Hunter Hayes, Kaylee? I'm saying this wrong. Kaylee Housewright, Tanya Ingram, and John Foreman. Those conversations will be happening again on Instagram with our founder, Jamie Twerkowski. There will be donate buttons in the comments and in the chat. You can also find everything that we've talked about today at worthlivingfor.com. More than anything, we want you to know that your life is worth living for. You matter, and we're just grateful that you could be a part of this with us today.
And also, very quickly, if you don't have the time to just sit in front of your computer or TV or whatever you're doing to watch these Instagram Live conversations, they will be saved. They will be put on our YouTube and Facebook and IGTV. So if you have things to do, you can do those things too. But you do have 12 minutes to go to the restroom or get some water or post a fundraising picture, wink, wink. So we can keep this conversation going. On behalf of the entire To Write Love on Our Arms team, thank you so much for being along with us on this journey. And we can't wait to see what the rest of this week has to offer, what the rest of today has to offer. And that's all for me, the dismount.
Thanks, everybody.